I'm going to discuss some of the magical foundations and steps in one of my latest books, Maskim Hul, Babylonian Magick. Let me first say that in Luciferianism and in the culture of Satanism and all associated left-hand path genres, in recent time, all the way since Anton LaVey, you haven't had a lot of culturally diverse adversarial pantheons kind of explored or brought out. The image of the modern adversaries such as Satan, Lucifer, Belial, all have deep significance to any Luciferian or Satanist for the most part. However, we have to look at those as successive kind of, and I say successive, not excessive, manifestations of various cultures. The adversary always has a few traits that make it different from any right-hand path or Judeo-Christian deity. First is darkness. The adversary is always a creature of darkness, if you will, a daemon of darkness. And what that means is darkness is our origin. If you are into evolution, the Babylonian Enuma Elish shows that we emerged from the blood of Keanu, but all life came from Tiamat, who took several different forms in the myth: water, a woman, and then finally the chaos dragon, in which she fought Marduk. The emerging kind of evolutionary that we crawled from the ocean as the various life forms is very much in line with the pragmatic Luciferian ideology. Evolution is what we do now. That's why we are into magic. That's why we perform these things. It's not to just have some kind of subculture to hang out in. This is a life journey, and it's the most important thing you can do. Everything in your life is connected to it. There's no complete fantasy that you run off to in this type of concept. I can say that with the Babylonian foundations, one of the earliest ones, Maskim Hul was an exhaustive work because I had to outline the historical, mythological, and religious aspects into a concise kind of grimoire. I could go 2,000 pages if I had the time. I stopped around 500. I wanted to give people the foundations in all those areas, but also the magical direction. Now, there's steps in Maskim Hul's called steps and rituals. Hub Biete, Pit Babi, Kishpu, Makwitu, Niku. Those are steps that the traditional Babylonian temples utilized. You're not required, if you're practicing this, to in any way have to go through all these ceremonial steps. I provided that just as a kind of side note and a foundation. This is what they did. This is how we can do it now. I've done all these steps many times, and I found I kind of have went more simple and adapted from there since I grew comfortable with it. The first thing is you will want to perform an offering to Anu and Ki. Anu is the great sky god. If you had an idea of what the adversary would be in a balanced form, it would be Anu. And the heavens in that time period did not mean heaven like you're flying up there with little wings and a harp and everyone's happy and blissful. The heavens, the great sky, was violent. It was also creative, and it was it worked with Shamash, the sun, which had creative destructive properties. Ki is the earth, and underneath the whole earth. In all of the incantations and rites, they're utilizing Anu and Ki. So you perform the consecration. I do this, I've done this several times. Regularly once a year is what you kind of would aim for. There's an altar image you can use for Anu, which is the horned hat of divinity. The elements are very important in Babylonian, Mesopotamian, and every other ancient pre-Christian pantheon, magical and religious practice. In Luciferianism, there's no difference. Ours is a resurgence, a refocus, if you will, on the self, the individual, and the potential of the individual. Now, Maskim Hul goes into depth about the difference between gods, demons, spirits. Now, in nature, gods often are symbolized concepts, energies, powers towards a specific continual action, something you know is going to happen. So there's storm god. Storm god is violent, often crossing over into a war god, as the actions of the storm, the lightning bolt, divine inspiration, but also bringing forth rain, which in turn creates vegetation, fertility, etc. Essential. So you have a balance there. It's creating and destroying. Gods of the wind generally are related to spirits, demons. And the winds are related to the rebellious, in most cases, rebellious spirits. So Lamashtu, she is the great daughter of Anu, and she's a goddess. And I have a kind of crude evocation cloth that I've used a lot as a temple banner. Lamashtu has no specific rules put upon her, but she's still a goddess. She represents a rebellious nature in the individual. One of her things in Maskim Hul in the ancient text is that she is Lilith, and actually associated with Hecate, the Greek Hecate, but she goes and takes babies, drinks blood, things like that. And then she fills a role in the natural order. However, if you look at it in a Luciferian, pragmatic, realistic, kind of rational, what does that mean thing, it's not about drinking blood, it's about the predatory and rebellious nature from us to go out on our own and forge our future against the Christian moral dogma, or the religious right of the day, if you will, tyranny. Lamashtu is associated with the wind. You have Pazuzu, who is called associated with the south wind. Shutu, and actually his cuneiform sigil or signature is in Maskim Hul. The ritual calling the five winds is very important because it's creation of the mental circle, if you will, and you're utilizing the winds after you consecrate originally to Anu and Ki. Very simple once you get it going, once you focus on it. After a certain time, you'll be able to say the name, Shutu, and you don't have to perform the whole incantation. You visualize it in your mind, and it's like that. It's there. Libations, fumigation, offerings. So when people say sacrifice, what do Christians automatically think was sacrifice? Oh, just like them, you're killing something. Abraham, blah, blah, blah. Read Old Testament for great bloody fun, right? Well, no. In ancient Mesopotamia specifically, sacrifice means you're offering incense, or libations, you're pouring out a drink in honor of the gods to the gods. So when we do it as Luciferians, we're doing it in offering, in respect for the specific god, deity, deific mask, and what they relate to inside of us and what we want. If I make an offering to, let's say, Marduk, it's to establish or re-establish a mastery in my own life pertaining certain things. So getting control of a household, or focusing on your job and controlling, managing better. that's what that is. So when you offer liquid, you're not saying, I bow to you. It's not that kind of a sacrifice. You're recognizing that within, and you're kind of, in doing those libations, you're recognizing the potential of greatness that you wish to accomplish. And your daemon is very much in tune with that. So the incantation of the gods are related to specific things. Very useful in day-to-day activities. You do not have to have a great Babylonian lifestyle, your apartment decked out like or something. You can have a small little altar, a few things on it. When you switch to another pantheon, you can put that away and bust it out. You don't have to grow a beard down to your chest either. Very simple. Maskim Hul is the, if I could say, what would be a prime Luciferian text, Maskim Hul, only because it's the foundation for everything else we practice today. One thing I'm going to describe as the next foundation in Maskim Hul is to really explore the concepts of Tiamat and Keanu. I'm going to get into that later. But one of the main points in Maskim Hul, of which the Grimoire was dedicated, started and finished upon, are the namesake of the Maskim Hul, or the 7 rebel gods, 7 evil gods. These powers, if you will, numbered in 7, which 7 is a very sacred number within, starting in the Mesopotamian pantheon, all over the world. All the great powers are associated with the number 7, or the demonic aspects have 7 attached. Beginning in Maskim Hul, I want to make reference to a couple different things you can use. So I talked about not having a small altar or having a small altar if you don't have the space. But you don't want to immerse your whole house in Mesopotamian, Babylonian, Assyrian decorations, especially if you're a guy and you have a girlfriend, because she won't let you probably. But just in case that you both are into Babylonian type things, that's even better, but rare. Plus, you don't want to have to explain to all of your friends why your entire house looks like an ancient temple in Babylon. But you can have small sections that are dedicated, and you'll carry these with you each day. These the symbols, that is, to which it'll make your magic that much more impactful. One thing that I have, several different things representing the Maskim Hul of the 7 evil gods. One is this. There's 6 black skulls, beads, 1 blackbird claw. And of course I have my bone. This is more for necromantical rites, but I use it as crystal's been with me for a long time. Just something that I've worked with for a long time. But in invoking, when I'm invoking the 7 or making offerings or projecting in dreams, I will count these, and there's actually 1 like pewter skull, and the rest, the black skulls, but they're all it's something to really, that my subconscious has an attachment to at this point. You can use things like that. Another is this Masagamin kind of thing that we're actually, the Luciferian Apothec is going to sell it soon, offer it to the public. It shows a 7-headed god, or the dragon called Leviathan Yam, or in that area, Musagamin, 7-headed serpent. It has Malamu, the divine radiance, and it has kind of like scales or spots like a leopard or something like that. 1 head is cut, representing Ningirsu, or one of the other hero gods who fought and later worked with this power. You can use that in an altar space. If you're ever wanting to know, man, I can't find a lot on Mesopotamian demons, I have some illustrations. There were some done in Maskim Hul. Tried to reproduce as much as possible. One thing with, like, the god Nergal, god of the underworld, war, darkness, all those things. He is referenced as a dragon, a devouring dragon that drinks blood. He is also in command of the 7 evil gods, which even Anu, who is the father of the 7, could not kind of control him. But they work with Nergal. Nergal is like the Hashem or Aishima in the Utuk Denal Asmodeus, who guides the 6 other or 7 dark powers of Ahriman with him. So there's a correlation and kind of assimilation there. Lions, demonic lions, winged creatures like Pazuzu, another cult statue, can be used in the same way. Mentioned previously, Pazuzu, or in the Sumerian text, Shutu, the demon or spirit of the southwest wind or south wind, is a perfect example of the kind of demonic, kind of anthropomorphic symbolism that you see in Maskim Hul and the ancient Assyrian, Babylonian, Sumerian text. You have the lion, kind of the emaciated lion head, the fangs, 2 canines, kind of a dog or reptile type body, and the legs, details here like the fur and the bird claws. Now, birds are, especially in Mesopotamia, are symbols of the underworld. Now, there's a wing progression here, because you have the 2 wings up representing the air ascending. You have the 2 wings down representing underworld. Lilith, which I will show you an example of, emerged in the area, of course. This one in particular. You have the owls representing the underworld, and she too has bird claws, representing her power of the underworld. A lot of the guardians in the underworld under Ereshkigal have, and demons have, talons, bird talons. The 2 wings down representing underworld. But the crowned, horned crown represents a strong divinity with the rod and circle. Okay. Lilith, which is, of course, in 3 different forms and kind of classes in Maskim Hul, is also associated with Lamashtu, who, as I've described before, is associated with Pazuzu, who has some scorpion elements. Scorpion, of course, is a great power and considered a death bringer in some ways. But Lamashtu has a similar form. She has a lion head, but she can also take different forms, as we see in the prophylactic and the talismanic images. I've tried to reproduce them in Maskim Hul to where they were very simple things you could use. You know, of course, I'm not the illustrator I'd want to be, but it's basically a reproduction of the originals. She takes wolf form, all kinds of different vampiric foundations, demonstrating the predatory instinct of man. Now, the vampiric cult of the Black Order of the Dragon is also immersed in these foundations and has been for years, and that's where I kind of got my search going to go beyond Christianity with Luciferianism. So as you're setting up an altar, you know, you'll want to have items like a Tiamat. We have here, there's some sigil, like sigil representations that I put into a lot of things that have some subtle value that only people who read something like Maskim Hul and get the fine points will get. There's a lot of symbolism people have not written about that they haven't picked up yet. There's some initiatory keys I put in there. If you have a cord, which you will need for all of your workings, you know, tying knots is an ancient Near Eastern thing. You'll want to get some kind of cord, rope, black for the 7 evil gods, and kind of put your, if you have a cut or something, blood, your own, only in the rope. If you're doing something with Lamashtu, your woman, menstrual blood is an option too. But this will be on you and pretty much only touched by you. So it's very important to build that kind of astral association. When you tie a knot, you're compelling your will towards a specific act. So if you're performing the incantation to the Maskim Hul to inspire the knowledge of rebellious demons and god of storms, initial workings, then you'll do something like that, or you'll have just a cult image or an altar image. The 7 have been represented as one specific demon that looks similar to like a Tiamat or Diasag or Pazuzu. Working with the 7 is very important in this grimoire, as well as Lamashtu, simply because they are foundation points and they are balanced. They create, and they're referenced to destroy, but they also take some creative forms as well. When you perform the knot working, as you call and invoke each name, you tie the knot. Now, this is not actually the one I use. That's been long consecrated, but you tie the knot. If you're performing a spell of curse or to gain something or an astral connection, then you'll tie that knot as well with items that you do in offerings. The cord is very important. It's used in all the Malku and the burning rituals and the astral projections and associating spirits to them. So the Maskim Hul is very important. And think of the symbolism with the powers. That's one of the most important things that people don't get. Why these Therionic images and what do they mean? All represent something in the subconscious and how you shape it in the physical world. So thank you for listening to this. I look forward to people actually doing the magic and the rites, because the hymns are created from actual cuneiform translations, and that's one thing that I was very big on with this, was authenticity and really not going so much the chaos magic route, but going to the in-depth foundations, representing it in a Luciferian way. Thank you. I'm going to actually go into and give you an example of how, and some clarity with how Maskim Hul is a grimoire which completely begins in the concept of Azothas, the beginning and the end, within the individual, the Black Adept, or Kasapu, which is sorcerer. I want to say that in the beginning, Tiamat, if you read the Enuma Elish, makes mention of Tiamat being defeated. Marduk takes the title of King U, which you hear he's vanquished, his blood used to create humans, and Ea helps that process. Tiamat is carved up and made the world. Her blood is taken to secret places. Tiamat remanifests throughout the Mesopotamian pantheon in the time of Naram Sin, a great Akkadian conqueror before the Neo-Assyrian Empire. This man made reference in records to Tiamat dwelling in the mountains of the Zagros, which is right above in Iran, with the mountain people who were raiding them. But he mentioned that Tiamat suckled all of the various barbarians and evil spirits of the area. And Lil, the storm god, was associated with her also. Tiamat remanifests as Ishtar of Arbela, and is shown in Babylonian text, later tablets, giving nourishment to one of the great Babylonian kings. So we can see that Tiamat, as I make reference in the grimoire, takes several forms. She's evolution. She's our dark primordial desire. She remanifests, even though she had to be removed out of the way for evolution to finally take place, i.e. Marduk. Marduk created nothing himself, only could borrow and put things together, but Tiamat is the creator. Kingu is mentioned as, they used rituals where he had the horns of a goat or a bull or something. That was the symbol of him. So if you have a goat skull, perfect symbol of Kingu, the manifested monster, who's actually king, chosen by Tiamat. Marduk should be respected, as he was a usurper who was successful and then made rule. This incantation is called the incantation of Isret Nabnisu, and it is to summon the powers of darkness, which bear Melamu, which are mantles of radiance. These are an invocation, kind of a circle calling, a meditation that I worked on for a long time about the 11 chaos dragons of Tiamat, making reference to clasping the Tablet of Destinies. That is essentially your daemon, your will, and your decreed, what you proclaim, will or direction to go in life. If you have the Tablet of Destinies, you command your world. In the mythological sense, you're a complete king, or queen for that matter. So visualize that and symbolize that within yourself as you're performing this. You really don't need any tools other than the images that you wish in the area that you're working. But when you perform this working, I'd suggest you take a bath afterwards or something with water, or go to sleep, some kind of dreaming concept at some point to where you can focus your mind. So we're going to begin with a title that's going to be used as the Lord of Cosmic Destinies and Dragons. And it's going to be read in Babylonian, but the rest is English. I did this for ease of use. The elements, as described in the origins of witchcraft and magic, even in the Wiccan outlook, all have come primarily from ancient Mesopotamia. Maskim Hul outlines all of the different associations with elements. We have earth, which I've described, but the most important for any practitioner, whether you're atheistic or theistic, is water. In Babylonian and even up to the Akkadian Assyrian pantheon. The purpose of this is that water begins as the creation and association with Tiamat. And then the god the Lord of Magick, who is one of the hands in illuminating and creating humanity, Ea, has a kingdom as symbolized within water, and takes many different, like, sea dragon forms. Primarily, all rituals in Babylonian magic and sorcery are associated and have some important significance in water, and here's why. It is considered that spirits and energies flow through water. So when you obtain a statue, you're working with it, you'll actually pour water over it. And that will contain, during the invocation, a symbolized concept of the essence of the god. So let's take Pazuzu. It's not very easy to find Ea statues or anything like this at this time. However, Pazuzu is a little more common. Pazuzu represents the wind. He's a wind spirit called a Lilu demon, which is associated with the Lilith demons. There's 3 different kinds. But he can be beneficial. He comes up from an old incantation for him. He comes up from the mountain. So he's very much a mountainous spirit. And Shutu is the wind that is associated with him. But nonetheless, he holds a balance because he can keep Lamashtu from devouring others. But he has a sinister side. But nonetheless, using water, when you pour water over his statue and you perform the working, you conduct the incense offering, and then you have a libation, which is a water. You'll pour it out into the ground or over him, 2 different points. That water will contain the essence of Pazuzu. So as you're doing these workings, it's not symbolic that the god resides there or the demon resides there. It is representing that. So the foundation of water is used in invocations and what they used to do as exorcisms. Now, Luciferians do not do exorcisms because we do not. A strong mind can shape anything, so you don't need to exercise anything. You may do ritual cleansings to focus your mind, but that's as far as it goes. A sample incantation from Maskim Hul over water is the following. From the mountain of Ea you have emerged to bless my workings with the magic of the Absu. Now, the Absu is an underworld, but not the land of the dead. It's not the city of the dead. It's it's the from which Ea dwells. May the sons of the abyss bless this water, shine upon the water 7 sons of darkness, who illuminate Malamu, 7 gods, 7 of the Absu. And you'll take the Digir, or the dagger, the one held by the Yugalu demon, the associate of Nergal, and touch the water. Then you have the fire element. Fire is for creation and then burning wax images, but also invoking the spirits of Nergal. So those are very important in that when you're using these, the elements have a very much of an importance, and that's associated with nature. Okay, look at nature as you are out in the world, hiking, walking, whatever you do, is that you want to become, if you're really intensely practicing this type of witchcraft, sorcery, or magic, you want to become very in tune with the elements and observe nature, observe the predators in nature, observe the beauty, and observe then the killing and the destruction that the predators do, but then the life, the emergence that comes from that. There's a balance. And it's very important because modern Wiccans and all kinds of other practitioners try to throw ethics around, like it's a free flyer to a strip club. And ethics really are about opinions. And Luciferians have kind of this approach. I don't care what you do, as long as it doesn't impact me in a negative way. But when it comes to ethics, anybody who says to you, oh, you killed that toad that time, and that, well, yeah, that's authentic witchcraft. You don't get any more real than that, but it's for a purpose. The toad was used. Every part of the toad was used and is still highly venerated. And, I figure anybody who at some point in their life has ate at McDonald's, eaten a hamburger, anything else like that, well, you have no right to criticize me because at least I knew mine, and these type of workings, like the toad rite from the Luciferian witchcraft avenue, is not necessarily for everyone. Very few people will go through that rite. And it's up to your daemon, really, if you do or not. But in Maskim Hul, if you practice this, you want to become in tune with nature and the predator, the darkness and the light from which that emerges. It's very important. And then hopefully you won't get an ethics complex where you have to throw those around at people for anything they do. So very important point with the essence of sorcery.